Corneria, fourth planet of the Lilat system.
Wait, text scrolling into space to give backstory? A war that takes place in space that involves a space fighter pilot team? A story that sees the main character lose his father at a young age? But that part's the twist! You know what? I'm starting to think that Star Wars might have ripped this game off. Video games. A means that was once simply used to entertain children, or perhaps pass the time on a rainy day, has since transformed into the foundation of countless childhoods, and has become an important part in both tech and human history. Welcome to a moment in gaming history. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a moment in gaming history. Now, if you were like me growing up, Fox, other than Starfox64, was simply just a Smash Bros. Character. Now, don't get me wrong, I was very aware that Star Fox had a franchise that consisted of more than just Starfox64, but I had never personally played any of the other games, and I am willing to bet that you likely share a similar experience. You see, Starfox64 is considered to be among gaming royalty, being involved in conversations like Ocarina of Time and Super Mario 64. However, unlike Zelda and Mario, I bet that most of us would struggle to name any other title in the Star Fox series. In fact, you may be surprised to learn that to this day, there have only ever been 8 independent Star Fox video games released by Nintendo. It is important to note that I am not including Starlink, A Battle for Atlas, though it does include Star Fox characters and a Star Fox story in its Nintendo Switch version. Ironically, this is the closest thing to a Star Fox game that we currently have on the Switch. But why is this? Well, let me ask you a question, wonderful viewers. Do you think that it is possible to create a story that is so good, it simply cannot be topped? An experience so compelling that a sequel will always fail because it simply isn't the original? That is the question that I will try to answer today as we tackle one of the most interesting yet hilarious moments in gaming history. Before we get started, let me catch you up to speed on the story of Star Fox 64. Long ago, in a galaxy far, far away, no, I'm kidding, but in a not-so-distant past, in the same solar system, the Lilat system that is, on a planet known as Corneria, General Pepper of the Cornerian army exiles an evil scientist known as Andross to a faraway planet in the Lilat system known as Venom. General Pepper was hoping that the exile of Andross to Venom would result in Andross's demise, but instead it appears as if Andross begins building an army on the planet. General Pepper then turns to Team Star Fox to go investigate what Andross is up to. The Star Fox team is led by James McCloud, Fox's father, and he is joined by Peppy Hare and Pigma Dangar. Upon arrival on Venom, Pigma betrays James and Peppy, and they are both captured. Due to a heroic sacrifice by James, Peppy is able to escape back to Corneria to tell both General Pepper and James's son Fox about his father's fate. Fast forward to the present day, and Fox is now all grown up and has rebooted the Star Fox team. He and the team set out to save the Lilat system from Andross's now fully constructed army. This story rocks. This story has lore, betrayal, motivation, loss, and hope. It truly gives me chills every single time that I boot up Star Fox 64 and get to hear it. The story also adds so much character depth to each character from the Star Fox team. I think that this is one of the strongest aspects of the entire game. Possibly better than even the backstory of previously mentioned Ocarina of Time and Super Mario 64. Like, for example, the backstory of Super Mario 64 is that Peach invites Mario over for some cake. Yeah, interpret that how you see fitting. Ocarina of Time has a pretty epic backstory, but we don't really get to see it play out in the interactions of the characters. Like, we know that Link's Hyrulean mother was injured and sought shelter in Kokiri Forest, and that in her last breath she left the child under the care of the Great Deku Tree. Link was ultimately raised by Saria. However, interacting with Saria throughout Ocarina of Time, sure, there are some wholesome moments, like when she teaches Link Saria's song, but come on! It cannot compare to the emotion felt by both Fox and Peppy when Peppy tells Fox,
"You're becoming more like your father."
We can infer from backstory and Fox's willingness to reboot the Star Fox team that all he has ever wanted to do was to be just like his dad. We can also infer that Peppy has stepped into that fatherly void of Fox's life, as Peppy was Fox's dad's best friend and was there when whatever happened on Venom happened. Not to mention that Peppy is a part of the newly formed Star Fox team as well. You know it hits both Peppy and Fox on a deep emotional level, as Peppy is now beginning to see his best friend alive once again in Fox as he flies his R-Wing just like James did. It's super powerful. Each character in Starfox64 has this kind of depth too. Fox, for example, has this almost calm focus about him throughout the game. He is extremely focused on either saving or avenging his father at all costs, either way, trying to get to the bottom and get answers on his father. Falco has this kind of cocky energy about him. He speaks to Fox in a sarcastic tone, as if giving off the impression that he believes he's a better flyer than Fox is, and that Fox is only the captain of the Star Fox team simply because James was the captain of the original team. Slippy gives off this almost childlike behavior. While sometimes annoying, you can tell that the team has this unspoken pact to keep Slippy safe at all costs. Lastly, there's Peppy, who of course is the most experienced. Because of this, and the fact that he was nearly killed on Venom, he tends to add some realism to each situation to keep the others sharp. So yeah, the game is pretty deep. How did it do sales-wise, you ask? Well, it sold over 4 million copies worldwide. For context, that's about what Link to the Past sold, and about 1 million copies better than that of Majora's Mask. At this point in gaming history, it appeared as though Nintendo had something very good going with the Star Fox franchise. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to What Did They Do Next? The game show where you, wonderful viewer, get to guess what they did next. After the booming success of Starfox64, did Nintendo A. immediately make a sequel like Zelda did with its release of Majora's Mask? B. Did they make a spin-off game on their other console, the Game Boy? Or C. Did they do absolutely nothing for 5 years and then completely paint over a random game with Star Fox elements? Ding, 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 ding! If you guessed C, you are right! Come on down, get yourself a Lego Star Fox R-Wing. That's right, Star Fox's next release didn't come out for 5 years and was a complete betrayal of the genre. Many of you know this, so I won't speak too much about it, but Star Fox Adventures, the next release, was not a Star Fox game for the majority of its development, and was instead a game by the name of Dinosaur Planet. Nintendo made the decision to make it a Star Fox game very late in its development. This was incredibly frustrating for any Star Fox fans at the time. 5 years fans waited for a proper sequel, and this didn't even feel like a sequel at all. And this, my friends, is where we enter this unbelievably hilarious moment in gaming history. After continuous failures to continue the Star Fox story, the next successful Star Fox game was 2011's Starfox64 3D. Now, I know what you're thinking. Brad Pack, isn't this great though? A remake isn't a bad idea, and I would agree with you, except when you consider that Starfox64 was already a remake. Starfox64 was a remake of the original Star Fox game on the SNES. The 64 version was a more realized version with more in-depth storytelling and much better graphics. So with the release of Starfox64 3D, the franchise had made a remake of a remake, making 50% of its current library the exact same game. It's even funnier when you compare the sales of the 6 games side by side, with one side being all of the games with the story of Star Fox 64 1 and 64 3D, and the other side being every other game. The Star Fox 1, 64, and 64 3D side combined to sell over 8 million copies. Everything else, less than half of that at 3.2. So Nintendo noticed a trend. If we take our amazing first Star Fox story, the games will sell. And if we don't, the games will fail. And then they did the unthinkable. No releases in between to test. The very next game, Star Fox Zero. Story is, you guessed it, the same story as before. Start in Corneria, Andross invades, go to Venom, and defeat Andross. 4 entries. 4 entries of this series is the exact same game. It's almost unheard of. And by the way, this is still ongoing. Technically, Star Fox Zero is the most recent release of Star Fox. I say technically because Star Fox 2 came out in 2017, which is a year after Star Fox Zero, but it's technically an SNES game. I know it's kind of confusing, but it came out on SNES Classic only, but oh yeah, get this, as we're talking about failed sequels, Nintendo can't even pick a direction to take the sequels. In both Star Fox 2 and Star Fox Assault, the games take place after the events of Star Fox 1, or Star Fox 64, or 64 3D, or Zero, you know what I mean, the first games. Anyway, Star Fox 2 has the team discovering that Andros did not in fact die after the events of the first game. However, in Star Fox Assault, Andros' nephew is the antagonist, and he is trying to avenge his uncle's death. So, is Andros dead or alive? Nintendo doesn't even know. So that begs the question, is Starfox64's story, or the original Star Fox story, simply too good of a story to create a sequel? Please let me know. Is there truly only one story that can be told with this Star Fox team? It's a real shame that Nintendo can't figure out another story with these characters. I truly believe that the Star Fox characters are some of the most dynamic and entertaining characters that Nintendo has ever made. I would love to see them find their way into the NCU or Nintendo Cinematic Universe someday. I truly think that these characters would shine. In fact, I look at a successful movie franchise that also takes place with ships in space, like Guardians of the Galaxy, and see some great parallels from the characters to the Star Fox team. We have a leader who is trying to prove himself and doesn't have a relationship with his father. A sidekick who believes that he should be the captain and thus speaks to the captain with a sarcastic and demeaning tone. We have a character like Slippy who can be somewhat annoying like Drax, yet also be extremely lovable like Groot. Lastly, we have Peppy, who although being around a bunch of young, inexperienced personalities, has been in some real wars and seen some real things, thus brings a somber and realistic vibe to the team. Regardless on if Star Fox ever makes it to the big screen, I would just love to see more entries in their franchise. What would you do with the Star Fox team if you could design another game? Do you truly believe that Starfox64's story is too good to overcome? Please leave a comment below, as I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for wondering, my wonderful friends, and we will see you next time.